All right. Hey there. So this is Lindsay with Sonar. Really excited today to be sitting down with the author of this piece, Georgette. Georgette is probably one of the most passionate people about customers that I've ever met. And this piece that she has written, I wanted to dig a little bit into it and get her perspective on all five of these different aspects of ISPs and insights and trust and credibility and all of these wonderful little magical superpowers that are available to us. So welcome, Georgette. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Lindsay. Thanks so much for taking time to chat with me today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Very excited. So in this piece that you wrote, there are a couple different things that I would love to be able to dig into. Like you write about customer reviews and really the importance of them and, them being part of, stories and humans and voices. And what I'd love to hear a little bit about is, first of all, there are five different aspects of reviews and stories and these magical superpowers that you get into. And the first one is insights. And I really love that you touched on insights first, and that it's a gold mine of insights. So tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
I think we typically see people leave reviews for companies when they're really, really happy or when they're really, really not happy. It's kind of that broad spectrum, right? So we want to grab the information, whether it's good or bad, and leverage it for the organization's benefit. It may be that there was a communication error or a lack of trust that was developed from the organization with the individual that was receiving the benefit, the service, the food, whatever it was for that review. But in the ISP world, it's very important to lean in and listen to what the customers are saying so that you can iterate on that experience for the customer and make sure that if it was a poor experience, you can work on that and make sure it doesn't happen again. And if it was a great experience, you want to be able to duplicate that and automate it if you can to make sure that it's automatically happening in your organization.
Automatically, I love that. Now, can you think back to a time where this was you got a piece of feedback and you were able to actually take care of it and implement it, within the product or within the challenge that you were experiencing? Can you think of a story?
Well, I mean, for Sonar as an organization, we are constantly trying to consume data from our customers, whether that's in a review cycle, whether it's coming out of implementation or a support interaction that someone has had. Sometimes people post on social media and we take that information. We try and get to the heart of what the problem is and have conversations. If it's posted publicly, absolutely, you don't want to, you want to make sure that you're addressing the issues, the concerns, but you also want to celebrate the wins. And when you've got a happy customer, you want to reach out, make sure they're okay with you, leveraging those attaboys in different ways, maybe adding it to your website, maybe highlighting it in your Facebook landing page or spotlighting it in LinkedIn. I'm seeing more and more of our ISPs really leveraging their LinkedIn presence in addition to Facebook presence and TikTok and Instagram and social media all across the board because they reach different people. And you have to know who your audience is and what you're trying to communicate to those individuals.
And I love that you said that because, yes, we're speaking a little bit today to Sonar and some testimonials with Sonar, but this also applies for the actual ISPs in communicating
Absolutely.
externally. And again, touch on that a little bit because that's important, I think, for ISPs to know.
For a long time, I have followed our customers on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. I like to see what they're posting, and some of them leverage it very, very well. Some of them really, whether it's an outage or it's celebrating a new community that they're opening up, or a team member who has completed their first month on the job, or their first year on the job, or their 20th year on the job. Celebrating the humanity of your organization publicly really reminds people that people do business with people. They don't necessarily do business with the brand. They do business with the people. And if you are being earnest and honest in your conversations with your customers, even when you have a trial or a tribulation, you can overcome that through conversation.
That's an amazing point. Spot on. Spot on. So let's move over into the trust and credibility one review at a time. I love that you likened it to a friend's recommendation. A lot of times I think, I've heard wonderful stories from you about ISPs who they sit next to their customers on Sunday in the pew at church. And that's a wonderful way to build the credibility and the trust. So there are ways though to expand beyond that, digitally online. And so
Mhm.
kind of exploring a little bit of that, I think, would be a great place for us to take this to help ISPs think beyond that as well, but also touch on that part first, like the trust and credibility.
Well, and I really do harken back to the smaller operators. When I first started in the industry, I had a conversation with a customer who was coming on board, and he was like, "Look, I do. I sit in the pews with these people. I sit in the stands, the football stands with them on Friday nights. They are my neighbors. They're the people I went to high school with, and they're the people that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. My reputation matters, and so." When you have an unhappy customer who you may not have played high school football with, or maybe your next door neighbor, or maybe somebody that go to church with, you don't want to be like, oh, don't make eye contact with me. We had a problem. We had an outage. We had a fiber cut, whatever. Um, we have operators that have 30, 40, 50,000 subscribers. You may not know that that's your neighbor, but you know they're your neighbor. You know that you're serving your community. You know that you're working in this footprint. You know that you're connecting communities and bridging the digital divide. And you have an obligation to those communities to provide the best possible service. And I have seen over and over again operators across the United States, Canada, and really around the world trying to do the best they possibly can with the technology they have available, the funds that are coming down the pipeline, bootstrapping deployments when they need to, repurposing material if there's been a natural disaster or something like that for another operator. The kinship that exists in these ISPs, those are stories that are so important beyond the recommendation, beyond the review. Because honestly, like if somebody is sharing something because a forest fire has happened and somebody needs new equipment or they need a new access point or they need manpower. I've seen ISPs share manpower. Their customers may never know that because it all happened in the background. But those stories deserve to be told too.
No, I think that's what a wonderful point and a wonderful thing to be able to shed some light on, is those kind of unsung hero stories that happen behind the scenes. So that was amazing. So let's talk about the beauty of continuous improvement. Was one of your next bullets, and that every critique is a gift. I love that you said every critique is a gift. Can you dig into
Well,
that a little bit?
change is the only constant in this industry. That we are certainly not the same operators or software platform that we were 2 months ago, 2 years ago. So uh, it's constantly evolving, and if we're not looking forward at what's next, while keeping an eye on what might have been a swing and a miss, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? How can we make sure that the processes are better every time? I'm not saying we're not going to make a mistake. I'm not saying an operator's not going to make a mistake. But as long as you evaluate post incident what has happened and how you can improve individually, organizationally, and with a forward communication plan in place, everyone is going to be better off. People get very nervous when they don't hear about what's going on. We've had an outage. There's been a fiber cut. Crickets. There's no additional information out to the customers. Just get that word out there on a regular basis that we're working on it. This is what our anticipated return to service is. And the more that you can leverage that automatically, it really does help keep your people focused on resolving the situation itself.
Yes, absolutely. And I just think it was such a good angle to take to help people get through those kinds of experiences and use them really to better the products and the services, the communications, and put people's minds at ease sometimes too.
Well,
So,
even organizationally for Sonar, we stood up our status page, status.sonar.software,
mhm.
as a result of a post-incident review. We need our customers to be able to subscribe to that service, know when something's going on, receive so sorry, receive an email in their inbox, and give them the statuses as we update them.
Yep, very important to keep them informed, in the know. Um, and then SEO magic. I love this one because I'm a marketer. So search engine optimization, otherwise known as SEO, and your words having that power beyond measure. So when you share your Sonar experiences, helping others find each other basically in a community. So that's very powerful. The power of community. Like, it's a very small community. Being a new person in this industry, I'm learning that very quickly. It's very tight knit, very very small community. Everybody seems to know everybody. But then there are those times where people will go out in search of something, and how can SEO and having those specific key phrases and things that might come up in a search help people find each other and then build that community.
I've always been fascinated by what operators will put on their website. Now serving ABC County. Well, then they won't put what state ABC County is. And if that county exists in multiple states, you're not helping your customer fine tune. People want the ease of one click, two click access to the information they want. So making sure that you're being definitive in what you're putting in that search engine. So it's not just your county and your city and your state. Don't make assumptions that your customers will be intuitive in their search for what you're doing. Ask your team members what SEO terms need to be included in those implementation pieces for your organization, because they have had experience looking for different things on the internet, and they may think about the search engines differently than you do, how people get to that information. And also think about different ages and stages. What does a 75-year-old look for when they've moved to an active 55 community on the internet? They used to pick out yellow pages, right? And they'd go through and they'd be like, oh, here's somebody I can call. That doesn't happen anymore. And chances are somebody who is a 20 something is going to ask somebody else, hey, who do you use for your internet? Or, mom, will you set up my internet for me? Whatever that needs to be, you have to know who you're speaking to make those SEO options be the best efficient use of your marketing time and energies.
And as I sit here and I think about, an experience when I first joined Sonar that I heard about, it was really eye-opening for me to hear somebody say on the sales team when asking a customer, well, how did you find us? How did you hear about us? You're used to hearing things like, oh, a trade show, or, I did a Google search. They actually said Chat GPT. And it's another piece and another layer that we can't get too deep into because we'll be here all day. But that people need to think about as you're creating this content on your website. What are those large language learning models like ChatGPT, like Gemini? They learn from that. Yeah. And so you become part of an answer inside of one of these, generative AI tools. It's a fascinating time.
And none of us have this magic 8-ball to know exactly what the answers are going to be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line, when machine learning and AI are really driving a totally new process for people to consume information. And we need to be able to control the narrative in that as best as we can. Are you checking into what your reputation is? Are you looking at this? Do you care? And if you care, then you need to cultivate that reputation and make sure that you're aware of what's going on and you're trying to stay ahead of that curve.
No, it's great advice, staying ahead of the curve. And then your number 5 was building a community one conversation at a time. And I love that you mentioned, we hear you, we appreciate you, and we're here for you. It's about the dialogue. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about this particular one, because I feel like it is such a humanizing aspect of who we are and who the industry is.
I probably spend 6 to 7 hours of my day every day on conference calls, on Zoom sessions. And I love that we're a fully remote organization. But I think about the humanity of going to the trade shows, of going and doing site visits with our customers. You get to hear conversations, you get to hear initiatives that they might not share on a regular just Zoom session. That is feedback also. And that it doesn't do me any good if I'm the one consuming it or my team is consuming it and it just goes in a book or it just goes in a note. We need to make sure that we're sharing it across the organization so that we can all look at these things differently and be able to grow bigger, stronger, faster together. Because the way I'm going to interpret that information is maybe a feature request or even a bug that needs to be repaired. It may be something different in the eyes of a product manager, a developer, the support team that may be like, oh, Georgette, did you think about this? There's just a different way to do this. It's not that anything's broken. It's not the way that this was intended to operate. So workflows are important, and having those open communication lines within your organization and even within your customer base. I think having beta testers and having Advisory councils are very important for an organization to be able to grow. And that is part of the feedback process as well, is gathering people together, whether it's virtually or in person, and hearing their feedback for your product, whether that's a software product, whether that's your internet service. Are you seating advisory councils with some of your business customers, maybe your tower owners, maybe the HOA owners? How are they leveraging your platform to the better? Because nothing makes my heart happier than to be at a trade show and watch one of my customers sell our product to another customer, and we just stand there and watch it happen. That is the best kind of review we can ever receive, and it always just fills me with so much joy to watch that happen.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so amazing to hear your perspective and your insights. Thank you for joining us today here on Behind the Blog, and many many more blogs to come, I hope. So we will hopefully see you on the next one. If folks want to find you, Georgette, where's the best place online for them to connect with you?
LinkedIn is definitely the best place to connect with me. So I would love to connect with you, and feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Georgette.
Thanks.